Kristen Collier, and this is Faith Ford. We're here with Burke Sage today, the star of Honest to God. This is so surreal to be with Burke Sage because I've never interviewed a movie star in real life, face to face, so very surreal.
Oh boy, thank you. I'm the star in my own home anyway, right? Yeah. So no, that's a thank you. I sure appreciate it.
No, it was weird seeing Burke after watching his movie. It's like it just felt surreal.
Yeah, it is strange. Well, it's strange for me too to even see friends, people that I know, in a film, and then see them afterward. Just there's almost a disconnect a little bit. I'm like,
really?
Okay, that's you, but it's not you, but it is you, and yeah. Yeah.
So it feels weird for you too?
Yeah, same things, yeah.
Well, honest to God, there's so much to talk about with this movie.
Daniel Adams.
Daniel, I was wondering, could you help Pretzel? He has to poopy.
Sorry.
Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling.
There's a good chance you have a terminal illness that could result in death in a short period of time.
This is kind of like the day before a colonoscopy.
You're gonna die?
Except this time, you won't be waking up afterwards to see if they found something.
I think it's important that you tell Rebecca as soon as possible, while she still has a few good years left in her.
Huh?
Mormons! How cool!
I'm Elder Jones. I'm Elder Wallace.
And you guys look so young. How cute!
Chloe, they're people, not puppies.
I don't want to die. I'm only in my 50s, for God's sake. For your sake. I promise you, I will change.
Good morning, my love. Good to see you eating at the table, son. My treat today.
Why?
Well, it's been a while since I treated, so, you know.
Well, you've never treated.
I don't know. He's been acting strange ever since he went to see that Dr. Haja.
Sure did. It is.
Am I losing my mind? Or did I just see you hand a baggie of dog poop to Miss Tucker?
Dr. Haja has been under investigation since the closing of his place of practice in Los Angeles last month for allegedly posing as a doctor, seeing patients, diagnosing them with terminal cancer, and then charging them for tests that were never performed.
Yes!
The film went through so many struggles and so many personal struggles and health issues. It was one of those things where there was a point where Robert Allen, he's the writer and director, I don't think he felt it was going to actually get produced, and it was pretty bad. They had, and I don't want to get into too much of the sad details, but one of the producers passed early on, and it was a dear friend of Robert's as well. And so just right from the start, there was a lot of things that kind of came up against it. And
well, and that's, I don't want to give anything away, but what is that saying about life follows art? Something so that actually relates to the storyline, and that seems to happen so many times in Christian movies.
Right. Yeah, a lot of life experiences kind of play out in the film side of things, but yeah, a lot of struggles, and then of course it was during COVID and over the last year that it kind of strung production out over numerous days and months, and we got it done. It finally came to fruition, and it was a great experience for me because that was really my first true lead role in a full-length feature film. I've had leads in a TV series, a pilot series, ID Network, Lone Star Justice, and all of that. But this one was the largest role that I've had, to date. And thank you to Robert just for trusting me with that role. I really didn't know him that well. We had only connected through auditions and whatnot. But to go through that process and to have that handed to me was an honor, and hopefully I did it justice.
Well, and I have to preface this by saying that Honest to God is a Christian comedy, so it's not your typical Christian love story, some horse gets sick and you can't make the horse show, your typical boring kind of tripe. This is actually a quirky comedy similar to Seinfeld. And in fact, it's the soup Nazi from Seinfeld who's in this. So it's quirky humor. It's different.
Yeah, it was. There's a lot of serious moments in it too, but it's definitely, it plays on real life. There's some really funny parts in that. And the soup Nazi, Larry Thomas, is in that. And without giving too much away, he plays a doctor who's not all that truthful with his patients. And he's my doctor. Just some of those scenes were tons of fun. And actually, I really enjoyed the behind the scenes, just being able to sit and talk with him, to get to know him a little bit and hear some stories about his experiences and all of that. He really made the set a very comfortable place. And I was a little starstruck, coming on set for the first time and meeting this big network TV star. And it was just within 10 seconds, it was just like, hey, let's all just go do this thing,
Well, another thing I loved about it is the fact that the quirky humor is so offbeat and different. You don't see that in Christian films. Another thing is the contemporary references to, say, like The Who.
That's true. I mean, there are references and things you have to kind of pull from more current, secular type of things. So.
Well, and that's important because also the visuals are important because a lot of Christian movies have like a cult-like feel to it because they seem to be produced by maybe people who aren't aware of contemporary culture, and so they're not able to reach the mainstream. And because this mentions contemporary references, the soup Nazi, the Who.
Part of what I got out of it is that we sometimes don't realize how important people are in our lives. And with my character Daniel, he was a businessman, strong businessman. He loved his family, but a lot of things that were deeper in his life, faith, he kind of kept that at arm's distance. And I think the whole movie brought him, and some of the tragic things that happened really kind of were the piercing through that veil, to his own heart, and ultimately what changed him. And for me, that's great because that's what God does in a lot of our lives, is that certain tragedies and certain things that happen in the natural, they're not great, but they're used to move us along, ultimately to open up to Him. And so I think that did justice to that, and it's got some ups and downs in it, definitely.
Well, and also Kevin wanted me to ask you, your character is, he's got struggles and he's not where he should be, so much different than you, so he's not, again, I don't want to give the ending away,
Sure.
But at the ending I felt like, okay, now this is the real Burke that we know and love, that we're watching, we like this, but when he's going through some transitions,
Sure.
What was that like for you?
He wasn't the nicest guy, and and the funny thing is that he wasn't nice. He was not a great guy, but he wasn't overly harsh. He wasn't like, he wasn't a nice. He wasn't just this mean browbeater. He was just kind of that sarcastic, kind of snarky, a little bit of an attitude, but just enough to get him by to being, to let it go. He's professional and just, that type of a thing. So it was just one of those kind of real thin, veil of, I'm going to be rude to you and things, but it doesn't look too bad. But yeah, he had to definitely go through a life change, and at the end, obviously, he was a little more of who I am normally. Right. But that was fun. It's fun to go through those things and kind of
He was a jerk. Pretty much, he was the guy.
I just wasn't very nice. I treated my best friend like he was a second-class citizen. It's just, it's really strange. I watch it and go, how in the world would this guy even want to stay friends with him? Right. Just shoves him off. Anyway, so he's not a great guy, but he ends up being a much better guy.
Another thing, getting to the film aspects, the scenery, it was beautiful, the photography was beautiful, and so I have to say kudos to Robert for doing that, because that is something that Christian filmmaking is coming a long way with, and so the beautiful place settings I really appreciated. And that's important because that makes your average film goer or your average viewer, they can relate to that and they want to watch it when you have beautiful place settings like that movie. So beautiful. Whoever did that, very well done.
They did a good job. Yeah, that was nice. Good sets.
Yeah. And not just the sets, but the photography, beautiful place settings. That's really important.
John Wesley Norton, DP, John Wesley.
excellent job. Beautiful, beautiful footage. So great job.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
So let's talk about the theme, honest to God. Again, we don't want to give too much away to people that haven't seen it, but that issue of being honest, because that's the whole premise of the film, being honest with God. So what can you share about
Sure, yeah. It comes from the premises that my character is diagnosed with a fatal illness, which is an incorrect diagnosis, as we find out later. But as a good businessman would, he takes the steps of negotiating, or so he thinks, with God. So I'm going to promise God, if you heal me, I'll do this, and I'll be nice to these people, and I'll walk so-and-so's dog, and I'll do all of these things.
Right, yeah.
This is our business deal. I get down with my prayer, and we'll be good. Okay, and I start out on my quest to fulfill my checklist of good deeds to make sure I'm good on my end of the bargain. But obviously things don't work out the way I had hoped, and I start backpedaling on those and start falling back into the old Daniel ways. And so this is really more about, if you're going to make promises to God, if you're going to be upfront and honest, carry it out. Scripture talks about taking a vow.
Right, yeah.
Better to close your mouth than to make a promise and not do it. So
can you share any of the specifics, like scenes of that really touched you, like the interactions with your characters that...
My best friend, Benji, in that film, he had some emotional issues and health issues and those kinds of things. So you could probably say that my character, Daniel, almost had him as a friend, as a courtesy, or a kind of a missionary type of relationship. But I got a lot of response, especially at the end, when I realized truly how important he was and how much he did impact my life that I really didn't admit to. That impacted quite a few people. They would come and say, "Boy, I love that dynamic with that relationship," and that was pretty neat to see that at the end. And I think a lot of us have had or have relationships like that. And I remember in high school certain kids that you grow apart from for whatever reason, and our youngest son has autism. And so those dynamics play with him and his friends, and just we understand what it's like to have somebody that can try to be a friend, but it's hard to always have that relationship, really, because of that strange dynamic. But that's one thing I think I had a lot of responses that they liked that relationship and how it kind of played out at the end, and my realization of, wow, he's really important.
Did that impact you?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just reinforced the fact that, we need to see everybody, equally. I mean, just to appreciate the value that everybody has, just because they don't act like us or share some of the same kinds of thoughts or whatever, doesn't diminish their value. And if they're part of our life, we need to treat them, as such and as an important part of our life. So that's just reinforced for me, how I interact and perceive people and relationships.
Honest to God, basically Burke's character finds out that
I get misdiagnosed with a terminal illness and given very, very short time to live. And through the course of my promising to do all these good things, some issues happen with my best friend, and there's some strife with my own family and my wife, who's really the one that has any faith in the family, and I think I'm living vicariously through her faith. Just that whole process. And then at the end, there's tragedy that happens, and it's a wake-up call. I think it's one of those things that Daniel, he had to have happen to wake him up to where he was spiritually and relationally, just the way it kind of wrapped up at the end of how all of that played together and changed his life and his next phase of life, which was totally out of the business world and was more in faith. I mean, just he was walking out and actually doing the things from a real relationship with God instead of this, hands off.
So the idea of being honest with God when the times are tough and then falling back into your same routines and patterns.
Whenever you make steps to try to pursue your relationship with the Lord, there's resistance. You've experienced that should be the sign that you're doing something right. Persevere. keep going. It's easy to default and go back to the way we all have a natural tendency to want to avoid stress and problems, and but sometimes pressing through is exactly what we need to do. So for anybody that's struggling, don't fall back. Just know that that's a sign that pushing forward is going to get you to the other side.
And one thing I also really appreciated about this was the fact that the protagonist was a middle-aged man, and it wasn't like a typical 20-year-old drama, love story, young kids or whatever. So kind of think of like Tim Allen with Home Improvement and those things. So I really appreciated that it was about the middle-aged man and his personal struggles and learning, and not focused on your character's family, but you yourself and your faith. That I really liked about that. So any insights about that or comments?
Other than it just encourages everybody to look at their own life, to see where they are, self-reflect a little bit, and to continue, like I say, to pursue God, pursue what's right, and when that's in the right priority, the family relationships and everything fall into place.
Any comments about how the movie has impacted you?
Other than just having a lot of people say that they enjoyed it, more of it was just, hey, that's your first film, and it was sure fun watching you, and those kinds of things. But I liked it because it still had some lighthearted moments, but it was a serious enough topic. So it was, at least from what I could see, a nice balance. It was fun. It's gotten quite a few views. I think it's got 93,000 views now on the YouTube, on the BMG, their YouTube channel, and so it's being viewed, which is great. So yeah.
So you've done the investigation, discovery. I guess that would be like drama, or what do you call it, crime dramas?
Yeah, it's kind of a crime reenactment drama type series, and it's funny because we filmed as if we were going to shoot full out episodes like a Blue Bloods or an NYPD Blue, or but then they have to cut out portions of it because they have to insert interviews with real people and all of that. That was a lot of fun, but that's basically what some of these crazy real life stories and crimes that they try to solve, and cold case type stuff, and it was neat just learning about the real people and some of those scenarios. But that was in Texas off and on for almost 2 months that I was down there. That was a lot of fun.
So we know that when you do a drama compared to a comedy, it's not always funny while you're shooting a comedy, even though you're making comedy.
Sure.
Do you have a preference, or how does that compare?
Boy, that was my first comedic type of, it was fun. I enjoyed it, but yeah, there's definitely some different things. And in talking with Robert, because I know he's had experience, in comedic type films, just kind of listening to him, and there's timing issues and just certain things that you do that fit that genre a little bit better. And so, but I'm still learning, obviously. But I would love to do more. I would like to learn how to do more of that.
Well, Burke was so awesome. He's highly likable in that, and I loved watching you in that role. I mean, I thought you were awesome doing comedy.
Thank you.
So, and we really believe that comedy is important in these trying times. So, any tips for young filmmakers about doing comedy now that you've...
Well, I think writing comedy and producing comedy, I think you have to have a skill set. I think it's something that if you're naturally gifted in that personally, and maybe you've written some things or just kind of have that natural groove, I think that's a great place to start. And then just connect with people. Brainstorm and put some ideas together and play with it and try it out, and that's how you make it work.
As far as like when you're actually doing the shoot on the set of a comedy shoot versus the drama,
a lot of it's the same. I mean, it's for me. I love just watching the production, that side of it. I love watching people when they set up the lighting, and I love when they talk about the shots and that. I mean, for me, I learn. So it's kind of an educational experience for me. So I get caught up in just doing one of these. They kind of, what are you doing? Kind of a thing. So I learned that, but it's the same whether you're shooting a comedy or a drama, but still fun.
How did you get that role? I mean, was it just like a straight audition, or?
It was an audition that got turned around into a whole different thing. I originally auditioned for the smallest role, basically, about in the whole film.
Wow.
So in the end, there's a scene where I'm with the pastor.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
that was the role that I auditioned for.
Wow.
And got the role. I was fired up because that was my first connection, you know, with Robert in that market, and just, you know, trying to make connections. And COVID and some of the other things, the guy that they had originally cast as a lead, great guy, well qualified, could have done a great job, couldn't commit because of the way scheduling and everything else. And Robert connected with me and said, hey, got a thought, you know, do you mind if we talk? And hours of Zoom, you know, read-throughs and auditions and that sort of thing. And he says, if you think you can commit to it, we'd like you to. So.
Well, and also, like, they have Mormons in there for, I guess, humor, comedic, comic relief.
And that's actually a real part of the story, part of Robert's story.
Right,
yeah, so there really were
Yeah.
Mormons that visited him in real life.
Oh, in real life?
Correct. So this isn't, so it was added, but it really happened in his life. So he's taking that from an actual experience.
Wow.
But of course it was funny, just
Yeah.
the element of that. But yeah, a lot of the scenes, a lot of the characters came from actual experiences that Robert had.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of offbeat humor that Christians generally don't do, so that was really interesting.
Yep, yeah, it was fun. Those were fun scenes.
And what are you working on now?
There's a lot, yeah. I mean, we wrapped The Text this past year, which was shot in Indiana. That one's in film festivals, gained some awards, and that's reached people in Uganda. There's a missionary group over there that's done movie showings, and they've had various faith-based films, and it's impacted a lot of people.
Can you tell the viewers what it's about?
Yeah, well, The Text. The premise is about the dangers of texting and driving, so without getting too many details, there's two families. I'm the husband of one of the leading ladies who won Best Actress at the Great Lakes Film Festival.
Nice.
Great lady, Carla Dansero. She played my wife, one of the leading ladies in the film. Yeah, so it's those two families and their kids. They're kind of matchmaking. They think the daughter and the son are going to be together. Well, one is a family where the mother is major texter, constantly on her phone, text, you know, all the time. My wife, not so much. You don't text when you're in the car. Well, there's an accident involving that, and those families split apart, and it's kind of that battle throughout the film, and it's really a story about forgiveness and reconciliation, you know, but it's all still the dangers of texting, and so that was pretty intense. There was a lot of emotion, a lot of intense moments throughout that.
There's no doubt in anyone's mind that you're a loving and devoted mother, but you have to continue living because life goes on.
And they've only given her an hour. She won't make it through surgery.
You're gonna be left with regrets, and I don't want that for you.
Her mother is the one that sent that stupid text. I begged her not to send it, and she still sent it, Dylan.
But no one forced me to answer it. I made that decision, and I should have known better.
Nobody ever warned me how hard and difficult life would be someday.
You think that would make up for what you did to my life?
I wanted to remind her how much I love and need her.
I'm so sorry.
Nothing in this world could ever drive a wedge between us.
That was fun. And then also through Eyes of Grace, I had a small role. That was in Wisconsin, and they wrapped production just not too long ago. I played a psychiatrist, so I know all the town's secrets. That's based on an actual book by Dave Payton. Kind of a murder mystery, whodunit kind of a
He was
kind
the
of a
bad
thing.
guy in Thy Neighbor. Right.
That's exactly
yeah.
Yep. That's exactly right. And so that will probably be out. I'm guessing sometime next year, spring or something. I don't have any details whether it's going to be streaming or what. But so I've been busy the last couple of years with being on set. Now I'm more auditioning, and now personally I finished my own screenplay. I did my first ever screenplay, and that's now starting to be submitted to film festivals and had some positives. I've been selected for a couple of them, and yeah, so I'm kind of running down that path now on the side.
Are you
That's
thinking
exciting.
about producing it yourself?
We'll see. A lot of prayer for that one. The storyline, it comes from my own personal life. Speaking of having a son with autism, it's about a couple that has their youngest son diagnosed and kind of their journey of trying to find help for them and struggling with their own faith of the whys and, why isn't God doing anything, and trying to figure out how he can do anything good in this life that's going to be filled with struggle. So it's got a little different ending. It ends great, but there's some tragedy that creates the good ending, much like Honest to God did. So I'm really excited about that. Some good responses from those that have kind of read through it and given some opinions. So I'm excited.
When will you know?
Well, I've entered a number of festivals, throughout the rest of this year and into next year, including the IC's, International Christian Film Festival. I'm gonna see how that goes, what kind of response I get in the feedback, and we'll see how that goes. But I'll start. It needs to be produced, whether I do it with somebody or I'm just gonna pray about, and when the door opens, I'll know. So. I'm just taking the steps. There's a lot of things. I'm auditioning for a lot of things. Whatever comes, I'm really just kind of open. I'm trying not to take. I say rejection, but I don't consider it rejection where you don't get a role. I mean, I don't consider myself being rejected. It just wasn't a fit, and it wasn't me. So that's maybe some advice. Don't take rejection, so hard. You have a place, you have a path, you have a part. In a production, wherever that may be, and if you're of faith, you need to know that God is already ahead of you, opening those doors. So just be patient. It can be a slow process. Just having patience and trusting and connect with people, work at your craft. Keep exercising those brain muscles and be creative. But for me, just staying connected and just developing things. I do a lot of funny stuff. I'll practice and I'll do monologue things and sit in front of the mirror and rehearse stuff and do different accents, and just constantly doing something to continue to develop my skills.
And can you tell our viewers how can they pray for you?
Oh gosh, well, especially with the filming side of things, just that regardless of where I'm at, whether it's a faith-based set, a secular set, just that I would be a light. That would be the biggest prayer, that I would see who I need to connect with, and that I would just really hear God's voice to connect with somebody. And that's what I've always believed, that I get a role because either I have something that he wants me to bring to a person, whether it's a crew member or a cast member, or he has something for me. So the road goes both ways, and so and I can honestly say that pretty much every scenario, every set that I've been on, there's been something like that. Whether I get to share part of my own story or encourage somebody, or vice versa. So just pray for that for me, and that's another thing you can do for yourself too if you're on set. Just pray that those doors will be open and you'll be alert and know when it's there.
Well, let's wrap this up with prayer.
Yeah.
Dear Jesus, thank you for Burke Sage and Honest to God and the whole team. Thank you for being such a light shining so brightly through Burke. He was phenomenal. Please give him more opportunities to reach the world so that they can see you shine through him, Jesus, to see that fabulous light, to show a lost and dying generation the light that is in Burke, that is you, Jesus. In your name we ask this, amen. That's it for Faith Forward. Burke Sage.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.